Not one of the 72 vaccines mandated for children has ever been safety tested. The Nazis did that in the camps in World War II. They tested vaccines on gypsies and Jews. I mean, I knew Harvey Weinstein. I knew Roger Ailes. I knew O.J. Simpson came to my house. Bill Cosby came to my house.
You also knew good people.
Yeah.
To the mainstream media, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a lot of things, and none of them good. A conspiracy theorist, a nutcase, a threat to public health.
He's a dangerous nutcase.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. admitted to having a worm that ate part of his brain.
Bobby Jr. here released a video revealing that in 2014 he left a dead bear in Central Park as a prank. You know, a prank.
He claims to want to heal America, but his vision for our future is tainted by his endorsements of hateful conspiracy theories.
Let's talk about the vaccine skeptic and promoter of conspiracy theories, RFK Jr.
He and I'll just say other conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theories.
I'm not gonna lie, the bear incident, I have to admit, is kind of epic, but another part of me is like, he does seem kind of like a wild card.
I'm going to let him go wild on health. I'm going to let him go wild on the food. I'm going to let him go wild on medicines.
And with President-elect Trump nominating him to be the next Secretary of Health and Human Services, which would put Kennedy in charge of agencies like the FDA, the NIH, the CDC, and many others, his ideas would no longer be just theoretical. They could soon shape policies that directly affect the health and safety of all Americans. So the question is, who is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Why is he so controversial? And is the media telling us the whole truth? To understand RFK Jr., I think you first have to examine the world in which he grew up. A world of extreme privilege, shadowed by unimaginable tragedy.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Is that possible?
By the time he was a teenager, Bobby Jr. had lived through the assassinations of two of the most renowned figures in American politics. President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, figures who just happened to be his uncle and his father. I'm just speculating here, but there's no way the murder of his father and his uncle, possibly, allegedly, by shadowy figures within the government itself, did not leave him with a deep distrust of the institutional powers that be. Just my opinion. Moving on. After the tragic loss of his father, Bobby Jr. spiraled into a turbulent period of drug use and rebellion, culminating in a felony charge for heroin possession in 1983. Sentenced to probation and community service, Kennedy entered rehab and began volunteering for the National Resources Defense Council, leaving his drug use behind and channeling his energy into public service.
But have you committed yourself to a political future?
I don't think so. I think I'll probably do some form of public service. I think everybody in my family really feels that a lot of my father's goals and ideals are worth pursuing.
In 1984, Kennedy joined the Hudson River Fishermen's Association, later renamed Riverkeeper. Over the next 3 decades, Kennedy built a reputation as one of the nation's foremost environmental lawyers, securing landmark legal victories against corporate polluters. New York Magazine even hailed him as the Kennedy who matters. But his advocacy didn't stop with the environment. By the mid-2000s, he began raising concerns about vaccine safety, a topic deemed out of bounds in most public discourse. While some of his claims have since been debunked, others sparked legitimate debate about misaligned incentives between public health and corporate interests. His critiques only grew louder during the COVID-19 pandemic as he vocally opposed vaccine mandates and lockdowns. Fast forward to 2024, after an unsuccessful presidential bid, first as a Democrat and later as an independent, Kennedy's shocking endorsement of President Trump has him on the doorstep of directly influencing the future of public health in America.
President-elect Donald Trump has followed through with a campaign promise to pick Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services and to let him go wild.
In his announcement, Trump highlighted RFK Jr.'s mission, taking on the food and pharmaceutical industrial complexes, rooting out misinformation and disinformation, protecting Americans from harmful chemicals and pollutants, and restoring gold standard scientific research and transparency. Are we not supposed to support those things? Also, RFK Jr. has made it clear he's done with the revolving door in federal agencies like the FDA and the CDC. Kennedy has also promised to ban pharmaceutical advertising.
This is an open secret. The news ad spending from pharma is a public relation lobbying tactic, essentially to buy off the news.
I want to pause for a second, and I just want you to think about why pharmaceutical companies run ads at all. It's not like we're going out there shopping for drugs. No, the goal of these companies is to buy loyalty from these media outlets because those ad dollars are the lifeblood of the legacy media business model, and a ban would be a pretty big hit to Big Pharma's influence.
The biggest threat to money, to people making money, is RFK Jr.
This is Dr. Vinay Prasad. He is a practicing hematologist and oncologist at UC San Francisco, and he believes the attacks on RFK Jr. are driven less by science and more by financial interests.
He's a serious threat to hundreds of billions of dollars. He's a threat to the entire biopharmaceutical industry. He's a threat to the public health complex. He's a threat to all the people making unproven devices. He's a threat to big agriculture, big food. He's a threat to environmental polluters. He's a threat to all these people. And trust me, when money is there at stake, people will do anything to try to torpedo him.
This is textbook ad hominem. Discredit the person when you can't discredit their ideas. And if you look at RFK Jr.'s ideas and positions, most of which have been called conspiracy theories, many of them aren't even really conspiracies at all.
Raw milk. RFK Jr. wants Americans to have the ability to buy unpasteurized milk. It's not a crazy proposal for him to put that on the table. Raw milk is legally available in many other nations, including England, New Zealand, France, Italy, Germany, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. Fluoride in the water. There are many countries, Germany, Norway, Sweden, that don't put fluoride in the water. Again, it's not conspiracy theory territory. It's something that's within the realm of what other people do, and it's something we can debate. COVID-19 policy. He opposed masking kids. Well, it turns out all the European nations did that, and they were smarter too. He opposed COVID vaccines for kids. Well, it turns out a lot of European nations didn't do that. Banning pesticides. Many of the pesticides he wants to ban are banned in the European Union. Banning food additives. Many of the food additives he wants to ban are banned in the European Union. Revolving door politics. Many of the things he wants to do to eliminate conflict in the system are banned in Europe and banned in other countries. And direct-to-consumer advertising is banned in every other country but the US and New Zealand. So in these respects, if what he's saying is in line with other nations, you have to say that's a reasonable debate.
That sounds like reasonable and proper scientific discussion to me, but hey, people keep telling me I'm not a scientist. In addition to calling him a conspiracy theorist, there are also other positions of his that have been woefully misconstrued. The biggest of which, his label as a vaccine denier, a claim that I think vastly oversimplifies his much more nuanced stance on vaccines.
I've never been anti-vaccine. I'm called anti-vaccine because that's a way of kind of marginalizing and discrediting me in the view of the public, but I had all my children vaccinated. I was fully vaccinated. And I've never been anti-vaccine. But what I've said is I'm pro-science and pro-safety, and we ought to subject vaccines, which are mandated for healthy children, not for sick people. We ought to subject them to at least the kind of rigorous placebo-controlled trials that are mandated for every other medicine. It's the only medicine that's exempt from pre-licensing safety trials.
Thanks to the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, vaccine manufacturers today are largely exempt from liability for injuries caused by their products, a protection no other pharmaceutical product enjoys. And according to a document released by the Department of Health and Human Services, new pediatric vaccines can be approved without placebo-controlled trials, leaving critical safety questions unanswered.
I see a lot of scientists saying vaccines saves lives. And vaccines work. Their vaccines are safe and effective. You have to stop saying that. You're not helping anybody by making a blanket statement. What if I were to say drugs are safe and effective? What does that even mean? There's so many drugs. They're given for different purposes to different people. Some drugs are life-saving and beneficial to some people when given at the right time, but you can't make a blanket statement about everything. So let's talk about vaccines. Some vaccines, I think there's a good reason why you'd put a lot of impetus in getting people to take it, where it's something that if it gets above a certain threshold, you can extinguish a disease like smallpox or like measles or like polio. So there, I think he should get a lot of pushback.
Like Prasad acknowledges, RFK Jr. has been wrong before, and when he is wrong, we shouldn't be afraid to let him know. For example, his past claim that poppers caused AIDS. Yeah, he's gonna get grilled over that one. But let's not forget, over the course of history, doctors have also been wrong. There was a time when they refused to wash their hands before surgery. In the 1950s, doctors were on national television endorsing cigarettes. And how many chemicals, once deemed safe, have been banned after activists fought for decades to expose their dangers?
You know, somebody said that Bobby Kennedy's like a magic 8-ball. We don't know what he's going to do. I don't think so. He's not a capricious or erratic force. He's a different philosophy. He has a environmental lawyer policy where they have an extremely low threshold to think something is a toxin or causing some problem. So my point there is that I think he will make a different type of error. That error will be to reject things. He's perhaps overly skeptical of some products, some chemicals, etc., but not the opposite error, the corporate error that we're used to.
I think that's the big question. What is your philosophy? What kind of error do you prefer? Safe until proven unsafe, or unsafe until proven safe? And on a much broader level, how much trust do you place in these powerful institutions that often evolve to prioritize their own survival over the original mission they were created to serve?
Everyone would have to be lying, wouldn't they? I mean,
no.
In these huge
this is what it is in Orthodoxy. It's just the same thing that happened to the Catholic Church during the pedophile scandal. It was a small number of priests who were actually part of the, who were raping children. But everybody got subsumed in it. The bishops, the Vatican, the press, the prosecutors, the public, everybody, and anybody who questioned, they became convinced that the institution was more important than the children it was supposed to protect. And they said, we have to make these sacrifices for the vaccine program.
His critiques does raise an uncomfortable question. Has science become a kind of modern-day religion where questioning orthodoxy is not met with debate, but with exile?
I think we should be able to debate what is different sensible nations do. It might not be right, but it does mean it's not absolutely crazy.
Without a doubt, even a supporter of RFK Jr. will have to admit that he isn't without flaws. His deep distrust of institutions means that he will sometimes embrace theories that don't hold water. His skepticism of vaccines, while rooted in legitimate concerns about safety and transparency, has alienated many and overshadowed his broader critiques of corporate power. In many ways, RFK Jr. is a paradox. A lifelong Democrat now working with a Republican. A man fighting for public health, while at the same time himself being labeled a public health threat. A relentless advocate for transparency who sometimes sees conspiracies where there are none. So he's definitely far from perfect, but I would argue that perfection has really never been the standard for public service. What he offers is, I think, something rare. A willingness to challenge the system at its core, even if it means making mistakes and enemies along the way. That's all from me this week. What are your thoughts and opinions about Bobby Kennedy Jr.? I am very, very certain that some of you will disagree with my takeaway. So let's chat. I'll see you in the comments section below. If you do want to support this kind of journalism, please take a second to like this video, share with as many people as possible, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. Also, I got a merch store now. Definitely check that out. And as always, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.